Welcome back to the Ravens Loft, and today I wanted to share an image that I drew for Winnie the Pooh, Demon Hunter, the first volume, but also my experience with wanting to just straight up give up and just quit altogether, or just move on from stuff, because I'm sure at some point, whether you're a writer, an artist, a creator, movie editor, whatever sort of field of creativity you work in, is it can be really difficult. That some days you kind of feel like you're fighting this uphill battle, and you're not really getting anywhere, and you've got kind of like a really huge defeatist thing, or let's say even like this piece you're working on isn't coming out the way you want to, like the image you have in your head and what you're trying to do on paper isn't coming together. So I think it was just around the time here that I just started working on Demon Hunter Raven 5, and that book like just about destroyed me in terms of just the scope of it, the vision, and what I wanted to do to execute the vision of it. It was really draining, and it pulled a lot out from me in terms of just trying to get that all into one idea. And I did this really big giant crossover with other characters in there. It was just a mind-boggling minefield to deal with in terms of just getting it right and doing the correct message I wanted to do in it, to tell the story of these characters, their arc, their flow, and then tie up some plot threads that I had put on earlier in the story and bring those to the forefront again of like, oh hey, we're gonna finally deal with that question that I started back in chapter 2 or chapter 4, now that we're all the way on chapter like 13 or 14 of this book. And you kind of hit those points where maybe it's burnout, maybe you've come to a point where like you just question like, oh man, are people enjoying this story? Do I enjoy telling this story? I've had moments of that where like, I remember just recently going back and looking at a draft of a script. I had it really, really written out. The outline was good, and then I started getting there to where I was writing it down, and it didn't really do that well. It was kind of poor. It didn't have a good flow, and it just wasn't meeting the criteria of what I find to be a fun story, a story that I want to tell. And sometimes I'll just rip up everything. That's actually what happened with Demon Hunter Raven 5, for instance, was the original story was a team up between Raven and another character, and Violet diving into the dream world to save people. It had a whole entire different story element, and it still followed the basic premise, but the settings, the locations, all that stuff were way different. And it was really good, had a really cool opportunity, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the story that it needed to be told, and it wouldn't have served the needs of the narration. So I ended up dropping it just because it was a really great opportunity to work with some of these other team up opportunities, but at the end of the day, it didn't serve the story in the means that it needed to be. And Winnie the Pooh has hit a few snags like that. Like right now, I'm working on I don't want to spoil it yet, but I'm working on a sort of a side story that I really, really want to tell. Like, it's been an image that's been in my head for, I think, 7 months now, and it's an idea that I've been wanting to play with for quite a while. And there gets to a point where sometimes the idea of creating is more fun than the executing, like trying to get the quality, the technical side of it all done and over with. And I've kind of just hit a point, actually this weekend, as I'm doing this video, I kind of hit I don't know if I'd call it a burnout, but just like a block in the road where I've got to sit here and go, all right, none of these ideas are coming together. They're not fully forming. And I can find sometimes that I'll hit this huge roadblock when I'm trying to rush myself, because I get so excited about putting these ideas down, and then when I come down, I realize it's too shallow. There's actually not a whole lot for me to do here. I need to spend some more time marinating it, cooking the idea, letting it, like putting more ingredients in there, putting the right sauce on it, or whatever sort of seasoning it needs to actually make it a meal that I'd want to present to people, that I would feel right serving to others. I don't want to just rush out a project or put out a product that is undercooked, or even some, I don't know, can you overcook a product? I'm sure you could to some degree, but the story, the character settings, I just found out that I was just more excited by the idea of it, that when it came down, I need to sit down and think of character arcs, character motivations, what's the story. And just to give a little hint, this story takes place before the events of Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter. There's a whole entire lore built up that I haven't even explored yet in terms of like Snow White coming into power, becoming the queen. What was the time during Winnie the Pooh and Christopher training as demon hunters in the Red Riding Hood army? And then the whole entire story of how did the Red Riding Hood army come together? And all these deal with the original stories, like obviously Red Riding Hood, and the werewolf, and then the grandma. Well, all of those same stories happened, but now they're expanded within the idea of the lore of the story that's being told. And that's actually where I'm at even with Snow White right now, is I'm trying to dive more into her origin, but what works within the narrative pieces of what I have going in this story. So sometimes I've even found that I have to go backwards further, flesh out more details, and go, well, while this was happening, this character was doing this over here. And sometimes I'll get discouraged because I go, oh, this is taking me too long to do this. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of guy that gets anxious. Like when I want to create something, I want to get in there and I want to start building it. Like I was telling my wife, I was like, I'm kind of getting to a point right now where I'm trying to write this story, but I haven't built the pool. I haven't put water in the pool. And in some ways, I almost haven't learned fully how to swim. I'm just excited by the idea of swimming. So I haven't done all the necessary steps to get to it where I can actually get in the pool and swim. Full disclosure, I can swim. No, I don't own a pool. But the idea of creating gets me so excited, and the idea behind them gets me really amped up that sometimes I'll get myself so hyped up by the time that I actually come to create it, I'll go, oh, it's already in my head, but I haven't actually gone through and done it. And I'll get really discouraged and go, oh, I have actually a lot to think about here. The actual forming the idea needs to now go from this cool little idea in my head to now a fleshed out idea. And sometimes going through the process of fleshing out the idea can be excruciating because sometimes then you go, oh man, that idea actually doesn't work. I was just excited by the notion of it. But now that I'm having to flesh it out, it's actually kind of a terrible idea. But I always try to spend a lot of time marinating an idea, letting it cook. Sometimes whether I'm actually drawing it, designing stuff, I'll spend sometimes just hours just sketching out ideas. And as I'm drawing, as you're watching this time lapse of this page going, this page was really important towards the narrative piece of the original story. And it harkens back to the original stories of Winnie the Pooh. And I like to even go back and try to reference things that we've already seen, play with those emotional ties, because just because I have an idea doesn't mean that it's always going to be a good one. I need to add in some important moments for there to be something exciting, something emotional. There has to be a story to be told. And another big thing too is that who cares if you're getting into a movie or a story and you don't really care about the characters, what they're doing, and things are just happening, but you're not invested, you're not connected to the story. So I'll actually spend a lot of time sitting there going, how do I make this worthwhile for the person on the other end? How do I want to tell this story, but there's got to be someone on the other end that has to read this. How do I make it so that they're just as invested in the story and as excited as I am? I could do all sorts of versions, all sorts of gimmicks with these characters, but at the end of the day, if people don't like it, I have wasted everyone's times and put out a subpar product that at the end of the day, I better be just as proud of, and I'd better care about just as much as the next person. And if I'm not proud of it at the end of the whole entire ordeal, then what was the point behind that? And a lot of things, or one big thing I like doing too, is sitting there and trying to think of who is the person on the other end of this story. What do they need help with? What can I do right now that would say, hey, I understand this. Let me give you a little wisdom or advice in this area, depending upon whether I have that knowledge or I research it and find something that brings about a unique idea to it. So if I can help people through the stories and give them hope, I think that's also one of the biggest things about Winnie the Pooh, Snow White. A lot of these public domain characters is they were characters that stood in the face of hopelessness and still overcame those obstacles. I think Snow White is actually boils down to a really cool story about, while it still has an innocent story, a character with a wholesome personality, just like Winnie the Pooh. This is a character that had to stand against hopeless, unsurmountable odds. She had someone that really wanted to take her down. She lost everything. She lost her family, and Snow White really had to come together and really stand above all that. And I just think that's kind of cool and worth exploring more. So I've been spending a lot of time right now trying to figure out how do I build that bridge? How do I build that story? And it can take a while. This isn't something I should rush. And I guess the biggest example I can use is when I used to play baseball as a kid. Is I get up to go swing the bat, and I'd get so anxious because I just wanted to swing the bat. I got so excited about it that when the pitcher would then throw the ball, I would then swing, but I'd be too early because I was too excited about possibly hitting a home run that it would go past me. And finally, my dad said, he goes, you got to just count to 3. Give yourself 3 seconds from when you think you should swing, and then swing. Because I had to slow myself down. And you know what? He was right. Every time I slowed myself down and counted to 3, I ended up hitting a home run. So I guess at the end of this conversation here is I'm going to spend some more time cooking, trying not to rush the story, create something that has a really cool message, has cool moments in it, and you feel is just as worth reading as it was as fun for me to make. If you want to check out any of my previous books, you want to kind of see what this is all about, you can head over to Amazon, pick up a copy, whether physical or digital, and check out for yourself and see, if I've hit a few home runs, or maybe I need to go back to the batting cage and do some practice. But you tell me. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I don't know. Thanks for being part of the journey. You have a good day.